Skylar Diggins-Smith is a force. She's a multi-time All-Star, a decorated Olympian, and known as one of the first women's basketball players to go viral when the league was still growing in the 2010s. Diana Taurasi is also a force. She's a GOAT of the sport, also a decorated Olympian, an MVP, a double-digit All-Star, and a WNBA champion. So why wouldn't you think to team these two up if you have the opportunity? No one has ever said anything bad about placing an immovable object with an unstoppable force against one another. Skylar Diggins-Smith was traded to the Phoenix Mercury back in 2020. This teamed her up with other elite players like Brittney Griner and Taurasi. It felt like a huge momentum shifter in the league, immediately opening up a contention window for Phoenix and making a first chip for SDS seem more attainable than ever. Despite this sort of super team being formed, they never got to hoist a trophy in the Diggins-Smith era thanks to beef and some troubling allegations. In 2020, the season was shortened to just 22 games because of COVID. That's nothing. What made it even shorter was the fact that the playoff format at this point in the league's history was single elimination games, one and done. Phoenix got bounced in the second round of Wubble postseason hoops by the Minnesota Lynx, and that ended their bittersweet first season with SDS. In 2021, they ran it back with their big three and made it to the finals. But they dropped that series 3-1 to the Candace Parker-led Chicago Sky, leading to a pretty infamous post-game press conference from the Mercury. Infamous because it didn't happen. They refused to meet with the media, and Taurasi actually punched a whole-ass door after the loss. Bummer for that door, but it made for an awesome prop for Chicago. So again, they run it back in 2022, but this time without Griner, who was detained in Russia for the entire season. It was just SDS and Taurasi leading the team, trying to navigate them back to the finals after such a bad loss to the Sky the previous year. And it was new head coach Vanessa Nygaard looking to coach this superstar backcourt up to the finals again and, ideally, a championship. DT and Sky are two players that, on paper, seem like they'd work extremely well together. Both guards and table setters for their teams, it felt like they could probably take the league by storm despite losing Griner. Unfortunately, since both are so good and so competitive, they were obviously going to get on each other for mistakes made on the floor that could cost the team games. And they did. In one May 2022 game against the Las Vegas Aces, the backcourt duo had a breakdown defensively that led to a few buckets for Vegas. Not the end of the world, it's literally just the second quarter and they weren't really down by much. Nothing to really be upset about here. Except, both were obviously annoyed at one another on subsequent plays on defense, and honestly, both plays seemed pretty bad on Taurasi's part. So it made no sense that Taurasi was the one getting upset with SDS in this game and on these plays. Should have probably been Skylar getting on DT for missing the opportunity to help on defense, for example, or just for her completely misunderstanding that SDS was hanging back on a transition play to defend one of Las Vegas's players that was lingering in the backcourt. After these blown plays, SDS had enough. Despite doing the "I'm gonna shake my leg to calm down" routine, which, been there, it does not work, she shot up out of her seat and got right into Taurasi's face on the sideline. A very intense scene mid-game. Nygaard said after the game that this was a normal thing to happen between two competitors just trying to win a game. Things got out of hand, sure, but don't give them too much flack. And Nygaard kind of has a point. This happens all the time in any sport. Kobe and Shaq, KD and Russ, now SDS and DT. When you have the best of the best competing with one another, you get friction, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. But Skylar was also having issues with Nygaard in-game, just like she was with DT. So, right message, wrong messenger. In a subsequent game in June 2022 against her old team, the Dallas Wings, SDS yelled at Nygaard as they walked off the court at halftime. She said, "Fucking bullshit," as she passed Nygaard to the locker room, presumably about the bad end to the half. Nygaard looked confused and asked what SDS said, so Sky very clearly articulated fucking bullshit to her coach, who just nodded and kept walking to the locker room. Another weird incident between these two came after All-Star announcements were made. Skylar made the team. DT did not. Nygaard was asked about this snub, and she was shocked. She said that there would be no true All-Star game without Taurasi there. Cool, except, you do have a player on your team going, right? Nygaard did give Skylar her flowers, but following up with that DT comment made it feel like she was calling an All-Star game with no DT a Mickey Mouse game. Skylar responded to this comment from Nygaard very succinctly. This tweet was since deleted, but screenshots live forever. To pile onto this already tension-filled locker room, there was another incident in-game between Skylar and Nygaard, where she was seen clapping at and yelling at the sideline for the coach to take her out of a blowout.
Having a tough time.
She wasn't happy with her performance, and with the Liberty holding a double-digit lead by that point, she was ready to get out. Finally, the season ended for Phoenix, ending up with a 15-21 record, good for the 8th seed in the league. Felt like 2022 lasted a lot longer than 36 games. A season from hell without Griner, and a season straight out of a bad drama with all that was going on between Sky and DT and Nygaard. Oh, and they'd now have to deal with the Aces in round 1 of the playoffs. Fun. And SDS actually sat out during this series and was out for the last 4 games of the regular season due to personal reasons. Without her impact, they were swept in round 1 by the eventual champion Aces. So, 2023. The Mercury finally would be getting Griner back after she was thankfully released back to the US, and DT would be returning to keep adding her name to history books. Diggins-Smith, however, was still away from the team, but for good reason. She was recovering from having her second child. Without her on the floor, the Mercury started the year out 2-10. So, they fired Nygaard. While away though, Sky crept back into the public eye to drop some serious allegations against the Mercury and its handling of her pregnancy. Skylar claimed that, firstly, the Mercury wanted nothing to do with her as she was a free agent after 2023 and not able to play with the team on account of her, being a new mom, so kind of slimy, but sounds like a typical team playing hardball. Then she said that Phoenix was not only not really acknowledging her existence, they didn't even wish her a happy birthday, for God's sakes, but they had completely cut her out. Cut her off from facilities, from trainers, from chiropractors. She allegedly couldn't use any of their resources despite her still being a member of the team. All because she, had a child? That's it. SDS says she found it odd how Phoenix was okay with her using the facility when she was away for personal reasons, but after she left the team completely, out of fear of her complications with her pregnancy, they closed her off from their resources. This garnered zero investigation from the league, by the way, which is shocking considering they had done that for Dearica Hamby and her situation with the Aces. Maybe more shockingly though, the typically outspoken Taurasi had nothing to say about these allegations. When approached with the idea of SDS returning to the Mercury on a new deal in 2024, DT moved right along.
Would you be open at all to Skylar coming back?
Next question.
You mean to tell me that the Diana Taurasi, who literally kissed an opponent mid-playoff game during a scuffle, who then said after the game she was just, quote, trying to make sweet love with Simone Augustus, has nothing to say about an actually serious issue and allegation made by a former teammate? That's weird. After these allegations and after the season was over, SDS signed with the Seattle Storm, a direct conference rival. She formed yet another elite, multi-headed monster with her, Nneka Ogwumike, Jewel Lloyd, and Ezi Magbegor joining forces. The first clash between the two teams since SDS's departure was in the preseason in 2024. It was preseason, so, nothing special, but at the end of the game, SDS was overheard saying she was not shaking hands with any Phoenix players, which her new teammates agreed on, adding "fuck them" to their huddle. After that game, SDS said she feels a lot more welcomed with Seattle and that she was just more so focused on prospering with her new team. DT, on the other hand, stayed with the Mercury and was still their alpha and their veteran leader. Same old, same old. Newton's second law says that in order for an immovable object to really qualify as immovable, it has to be infinitely large. Infinite can really aptly describe Diana Taurasi's career, and Skylar Diggins-Smith became the best test of immovability that Taurasi has ever seen, and probably will ever see. Hey y'all, thanks so much for watching. Greatly appreciated. If you want to see more stuff like this before it's on YouTube, or you want to read or watch exclusive things from the secret base team that won't make their way onto YouTube, subscribe to our Patreon.